Welcome, everyone. In this presentation, I'll explore Robert Regnier's The Sacred Circle, a process pedagogy of healing. Regnier offers an Aboriginal approach to education that frames learning as a form of healing, a process of restoring balance, meaning, and connection. His ideas challenge traditional Western views of education by emphasizing relationships, community, and spirituality as essential to human growth. We'll explore how his model blends Indigenous worldviews with process philosophy and how it has been successfully practiced in real schools serving Indigenous youth. Here's an overview of the flow of today's presentation. We'll begin with Regnier's central idea of healing as process. Then move into the symbolism of the sacred circle and how it becomes a pedagogical model. Next, we'll examine how he combines Indigenous metaphysics with Western process philosophy, framing education as a tool for human emancipation. We'll then look at how these ideas come to life at Joe Duquette High School before concluding with a reflection and discussion questions. Before we begin, I want to invite you to keep these three guiding questions in mind. The first asks us to consider how our roles as teachers might shift if we view education not as simply transferring knowledge, but as helping students heal and grow. The second invites reflection on how we can respectfully learn from Indigenous frameworks like the sacred circle without appropriating them. And finally, the third question encourages us to think about how healing and critical reflection can work together to challenge inequities that still exist in modern education. As we move through the presentation, you might want to jot down your thoughts or examples from your own experience that connect to these questions. Regnier's first key idea is that healing isn't about reaching an end goal, it's about the ongoing journey toward wholeness and balance. This view sees learning and healing as deeply intertwined. As we learn, we also restore parts of ourselves that may have been disconnected or harmed. Education in this model becomes a form of healing, helping individuals and communities reconnect to themselves, their culture, and their sense of purpose. This stands in contrast to Western models that treat education as achievement based or outcome focused. The sacred circle is both a spiritual and educational symbol found across many Plains Indigenous cultures. It represents the interconnectedness of all life, people, land, spirit, and knowledge, moving in a constant cycle of renewal. Regnier uses the circle as both a metaphor and a structure for education, emphasizing that learning is relational and cyclical, not linear. Within this framework, every learner has a place, and every relationship within the classroom contributes to balance and harmony. Regnier weaves Western philosopher Alfred North Whitehead's concept of process philosophy with Indigenous ways of knowing. Whitehead saw reality as always in motion. Nothing is static. Similarly, Indigenous metaphysics views the world as relational and ever evolving. By merging these perspectives, Regnier presents teaching as a dynamic process of guiding students within this ongoing movement of life. His concept of process pedagogy refers to an approach to teaching and learning that mirrors the ongoing relational and cyclical nature of healing and growth found in Indigenous worldviews. Teachers, in this view, are facilitators of growth, not controllers of it. Regnier places his work within the broader tradition of critical pedagogy, which seeks to challenge oppression and promote human freedom. For Indigenous communities, this means reclaiming educational spaces that have long been tools of assimilation and control. His model argues that healing can only occur when Indigenous knowledge systems are recognized and respected within mainstream education. By validating Indigenous worldviews, education becomes a means of emancipation, liberating both Indigenous and non Indigenous learners from colonial patterns of thought. He saw process pedagogy as a means of liberation where education becomes a path toward cultural and personal emancipation. Regnier describes three cyclical phases of the learning process. The first is belonging, establishing relationships and respect so that learning can occur within a safe community. The second is understanding, where learners explore knowledge deeply and meaningfully, often through storytelling, dialogue, and lived experience. The third phase is critical reflection, a step back to question assumptions, examine power, and locate oneself within broader social and historical context. Together, these phases help students grow intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually. They reflect a cyclical journey of growth and healing, not a linear progression. This phase is about creating a learning environment where students feel welcomed, valued, and safe to show up as their full selves. Regnier emphasizes that healing begins with relationships, so the teacher's role is to build trust, honor each student's identity, and to foster a sense of community. In this stage, students settle in, connect with one another, and recognize that their voice matters within the circle. In this phase, students begin engaging deeply with the material and with their own experiences. Renee describes learning as an active relational process, so students are encouraged to explore ideas, ask questions, and make meaning in a balanced way, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. The teacher becomes a guide, helping learners move from surface level knowing to genuine insight and clarity. The final phase invites learners to step back and thoughtfully examine what they've experienced. Regnier frames this reflection as essential for healing. Students consider how new understandings shape their identity, relationships, and choices. This stage encourages honesty, humility, and integration. The goal is to help students leave the circle with a stronger sense of self and a clearer pathway for growth beyond the classroom. Joe Duquette High School provides a real world example of Regnier's ideas and practice. The school was designed to serve Indigenous youth in an urban setting, many of whom had struggled in mainstream systems. While the school had previously adopted a perspective to navigate this, the change at the school came when the school started reshaping its practices from a sacred circle healing paradigm. The model guided the school's philosophy. Relationships came before academics, and learning was deeply connected to culture and ceremony. It adopted this framework for addressing the considerable psychological, cultural, and social difficulties many of its students experience. Students participated in circles, storytelling, and cultural events, helping them reclaim identity and self worth through education. In this model, the classroom becomes a community rather than a hierarchy. Teachers and students sit together in dialogue, acknowledging that everyone has knowledge to share. Learning is not transactional, it's relational. Healing occurs naturally as students feel seen, valued, and connected. This approach transforms education into a living, reciprocal process where growth happens for everyone involved. This table captures the essence of Regnier's work. Healing and learning are cyclical and interdependent, grounded in both indigenous and process based thought. Education should aim to restore balance, nurture belonging, and challenge systems of inequality. Most importantly, these ideas are not just theoretical, they have been practiced successfully, showing us what healing education can look like in action. Regnier's framework invites us to rethink what it means to teach. As educators, we're not just transferring knowledge, we're helping students find balance and meaning in their lives. This requires humility, relational awareness, and care for the whole person. When we approach education as a process of healing, it transforms not just our students, but also ourselves and our schools. Let's close by returning to these discussion questions. They invite us to think critically and personally about how we might apply what we've learned. Thanks for watching.